Hey, how's it going everyone, and welcome to another episode of Weekly Code Quickies, your weekly updates for tech news, coding tricks and tips, and more. In today's episode, we're going to learn about Web 3.0, and should we even care about Web 3.0? Okay, so you may have heard about Web 3.0, but what actually is it? Should you even care about it? And do we really need another version of the internet? But what's wrong with Web 2.0, the current version of the internet, and its predecessor Web 1.0? So are there even any benefits to Web 3.0? In this episode, we'll try to answer all of these questions, and if you wish to learn more about the fastest growing web technology, then stick around to the end. But before we even jump into Web 3.0, let's take a dive into the past and let's see what Web 1.0 actually was. Web 1.0 was the earliest version of the internet, as it emerged from its origins within the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, also known as DARPA. The earliest version of the internet was mostly composed of static web pages with hyperlinks. Hyperlinks are a reference to data that users can follow by clicking or just tapping it in our days. Lacking the initial visuals, controls, and forms that we are used to seeing today, Web 1.0 was also known as the read-only web, a web that was not interactive in any significant sense. Web 1.0 was the first stage or iteration of the internet, and as you can guess, there were not many content creators and most internet users were consumers. This means fewer people were creating content and consuming content on the internet. Static pages with little to none CSS were much more common in Web 1.0 than pages that use dynamic HTML, and content came from a file system rather than a data system. Websites in Web 1.0 have extremely limited functionality. At the end of the day, Web 1.0 was much simpler because content on the internet was created by just a handful of people in comparison to our days where we have millions of web developers in Web 2.0. Okay, so now that we know what Web 1.0 was, let's take a look at the current version of the internet, which is Web 2.0. The term Web 2.0 started being used in around 1999, and it is the internet that we all know today. The Web 2.0 content consumers were encouraged to become content creators. Rather than taking a passive approach to the internet by simply viewing the internet, Web 2.0 provides an environment where more users could become active participants. Web 2.0 allowed individuals to publish articles and comments, starting with blogs. Then users could create accounts and subscribe to different sites, which ultimately encourage participants in increasing the number of people regularly using the internet. Web 2.0 was structured in a way that encouraged more people to create unique content. Enter YouTube, the biggest content creator platform in the world. Web 2.0 has been characterized by the rise of apps like social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and of course YouTube, and also platforms that enabled self-publishing such as WordPress, and also platforms that enable self-publishing such as WordPress and Squarespace. These websites emphasize user-generated content, which are all distinct characteristics of Web 2.0 and gave birth to powerful web stacks and libraries such as Angular, React, and Vue.js, which combine the power of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to speed up the web development process. Web 2.0 transitioned from a mere content consumer platform to a content creator platform. Web 2.0 is the transition that the internet went through after the boom of the dot-com bubble. But the internet is once again in process of transitioning. This new stage of the internet will provide new benefits to users and content creators. Okay, so what is the problem with Web 2.0? Now, before we get into Web 3.0, let's talk about the main problem of Web 2.0. If Web 1.0 biggest problem was its static state, Web 2.0's problem can be summarized into one single word: centralization. Or in other words, control. Control over content, which cripples content creators and makes them obedient slaves to the platforms that they are creating on. This is not what the father of the internet, Tim Berners-Lee, had originally imagined for the World Wide Web. Tim Berners-Lee's original vision was a semantic web, a smarter internet that was more autonomous and open. In other words, a decentralized web. So what is Web 3.0? Enter the decentralized web. In Web 3.0, data will be connected in a decentralized way, unlike in Web 2.0, in which data is primarily stored in centralized storage locations called servers, which limit the access to its creators and users, and gives total control to the holders. In Web 3.0, data will be decentralized. Users will also be able to interact with data throughout the use of AI and machine learning technology. Ultimately, Web 3.0 will combine the concept of a semantic web with AI. So what is the main concept of Web 3.0? Web 3.0 will be the updated and enhanced version of the internet, but with additional benefits due to its decentralization. There are 4 rules to the Web 3.0's data. First rule, verifiable, which means able to be checked or demonstrated to be true, accurate, or justified. The second is trustless. In this case, it means that it will minimize the amount of trust required from any single user in the system by distributing trust among different users. Third, self-governing. Self-governing is the ability of users or groups of users to exercise all necessary functions of regulations without intervention from an external authority. And last but not least, permissionless. This means anyone can transact and join as a validator. Now we are extremely certain that Web 3.0 will use AI. We fear that AI will take over the world, but I believe it's actually quite the contrary. AI will just help the world and ultimately increase our capabilities. The use of AI will allow data to be provided to the users faster, and the data that is provided will be more relevant to each user. We are beginning to see that the use of this technology in the internet throughout algorithms that are used to suggest products and videos to the users based on their previous search. But do not forget, if you search for puppies, you will get puppies. If you search for war, you will get war. You will always find what you search for. In Web 2.0, search is a double-edged sword. However, the technology in Web 3.0 will be even more advanced. Web 3.0 will return to the original concept. It will, in some ways, be a return to the original concept of the web, a place where users do not need permission from a central authority to post. Decentralized means there is no central control and there is no single point of failure. One of the most promising aspects of Web 3.0 is that throughout its decentralization nature, it will remove control of the internet from the centralized corporations that currently dominate it, unless you wish to join Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse. If you wish to find out more about his metaverse, then check out my previous post. In Web 3.0, websites and applications will have access to more information that will be presented in a way that is more beneficial for users. So why does Web 3.0 matter? For too long, large corporations like Google, Facebook, and Twitter have dominated the internet, meaning that individual users have less control. These organizations have asked us to provide our personal data in exchange for access to their platforms and devices. And we must say that we willingly gave the data to them, which at the end of the day they sold to advertisers and used it for profit. Regaining ownership of your personal data is the main focus of Web 3.0. If you wish to use the internet that provides equal benefits to all users, then you should be excited for Web 3.0. I do feel that Web 3.0 will allow the internet to exist in the way that it was always originally intended to exist, as a truly open venue that provides virtual, endless access to information. And it will basically be a more advanced version of the internet as we know it today. Decentralization in general will take control away from centralized authorities and give that control to everyone, ultimately furthering equality. Web 3.0 will be ultimately made possible through decentralized protocols. In the future internet, blockchains and cryptocurrencies will be interconnected and automated through the use of smart contracts. So as I promised, here's the fastest growing web technology out there, which are blockchains. Sadly, Web 2.0 has been marked by centralization, surveillance, and invasive ads. But the use of decentralized technologies such as blockchains will allow a more open environment where data on the internet is decentralized. Web 3.0 will allow decentralization apps to display centralized social networks such as Facebook, and individuals will maintain ownership of their personal data. So enter the blockchain. A blockchain is a distributed database that is shared among nodes of computer networks. As a database, a blockchain stores information electronically in digital format. Blockchains are best known for their crucial role in the cryptocurrency system, such as Bitcoin and Ethereum, for maintaining a secured and decentralized record of transactions. The innovation with a blockchain is that it guarantees a fidelity and security of a record of data and generates trust without the need of a trusted third party. Okay, so what is the difference between a blockchain and a traditional database? One key difference between a typical database and a blockchain is the way the data is structured. A blockchain collects information throughout its group, known as blocks. These hold a set of information. Blocks have certain storage capacities, and when filled, are closed and linked to the previous filled block. In this way, they form a chain of data known as a blockchain. All new information that follows the freshly added block is compiled into a newly formed block that will then also be added to the chain once it's filled. A database usually structures its data into tables, where a blockchain, like its name implies, structures its data into chunks called blocks that are strung together. This data structure inherently makes an irreversible timeline of data when implemented in a decentralized nature. When a block is filled, it is set in stone and becomes a part of its timeline. Each block in the chain is given an exact timestamp when it is added to the chain. In a nutshell, blockchain is the technology, the most secured and decentralized data on the internet. So is Web 3.0 really the future of the internet? Well, only time will tell. But in the meantime, please leave a like or a dislike if you like this episode. Also, if you have any kind of questions or suggestions, leave them in the comment section. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, then please consider doing so, because we post new content like this on a weekly basis. Also, click the notification bell on YouTube if you'd like to be notified whenever we post new content like this, and leave a review if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So with this being said, catch you next time. Bye bye.